UPSC aspirants, welcome back to another learning video. In today's video lecture, we're going to look at this beautiful poem called The Second Coming by W.B. Yeats, a poem prescribed in your optional English literature syllabi. But before we begin, Finland Academy won't let coronavirus affect your preparation. To join our UPSC optional English literature classes, you may log on to www.finlandacademy.com for any information related to the course program, or call us at 88-650-288-65 for any queries. Alright, so even before understanding what the poem is about, let's first of all look at the structure of the poem. So Yeats, he begins his poem like this. He says, "Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the earth. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity." Let's understand these lines once again. So he says, turning and turning in the widening gyre. Imagine this is a circle and it's constantly moving. So if you have good days today, don't think your bad days are not waiting for you. Or if you have too many bad days today, don't think your good days are not waiting for you. So turning and turning in this widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Who's the falcon? I am the falcon. Who's the falconer? God is the falconer. So we want to listen to God because God is God. But we don't want to follow His teachings. So the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. So things fall apart. Why? Because the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Because I cannot hear my God. I don't want to understand His teachings. So the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Even the God or the center cannot hold. Or the government cannot hold. Here center also refers to government or to God. Then he goes on to say, mere anarchy is loosed upon the earth. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. So the celebration of innocence is dead. We are so full of empty emotions. We are so full of empty feelings. So devoid of empathy and sympathy for others. So the ceremony of innocence is drawn. Why? He explains that in the next lines. He says, the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. So the best people have lost all the faith. Why? Because the worst are full of passionate intensity. Worst people on this planet, they hold all the structures of power. While the best people are all subdued, they're all suppressed, they're all oppressed. And this is why the best lack all conviction. The best people, they've lost their faith. Alright, now let's look at the second stanza. He says, surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. So here revelation, the second coming, refers to what? Refers to birth of Jesus Christ. And here we must understand that the poet is sure about the birth of the Jesus Christ. This is why he uses the word surely repetitively in the second stanza. He says, surely the revelation is at hand. Some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Also adds on to say, hardly are those words out, when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Notice this word. Troubles my sight. When a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight, somewhere in the sands of desert. Somewhere in the sands of desert. A shape with lion body and the head of a man. A shape with lion body and the head of a man. A gaze blank and pitiless as the sun. A gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs, while all about it real shadows of desert indignant birds. So what does he say? First of all he says, surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. So he knows God is going to come and save the entire humanity, but he also adds, and he says, hardly are those words out the moment I think about that. A vast image out of Spiritus Mundi. Here Spiritus Mundi refers to the collective consciousness of the world. Here YEATS was highly inspired by Jung, who gave this concept of collective consciousness, unconsciousness. So hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Please notice this. He says, this image of God troubles my sight. A shape with a lion body and the head of a man. So this time, the image of God will not be sympathetic or empathetic. It's not a loving image of God. A gaze blank and pitiless as the sun. So his gaze is blank and he has no pity. This is why pitiless as the sun. How can he have pity for the people of Kali Yuga, for people like us? This is why in the first stanza he adds, he says, the best lack all conviction while the worst are full of passionate intensity. This is why God is coming in this avatar. God is coming in this form, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun. While all about it, real shadows of desert indignant words. So look at the image of nature here, not a very loving image. So desert indignant words, even the birds are angry. The poet then goes on to add, the darkness drops again. But now I know, he knows something and he's pretty sure about it. This is why he says, but now I know. 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. So you see the image of rocking cradle here refers to the birth of Jesus Christ finally. But in what form? He explains that in the next line. He says, 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. What rough beast, its hour come round at last. What rough beast. So this rough beast refers to the image of God, the new form, the new avatar which will not be pitiful, which will have no pity, will have no sympathy, no empathy for people like us. Why? Because the worst are full of passionate intensity, remember that. And then he says, what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. So Bethlehem again refers to the birth of Jesus Christ, a very positive image. So slouches towards Bethlehem to be born, and he puts a question mark there in the end. Very important thing to notice. Slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. Let's look at the poem in more detail. So here we have The Second Coming by W.B. Yeats. Number 1, this poem was first published in 1920 in the book The Dial. Now, Ireland was going through a lot of upheavals when Yeats wrote this poem. Considering the backdrop of World War I, the Irish nation was experiencing a sense of shock and trauma at that point in time. And you see how the futility and finality of the world is sensed by each and every line of it. as the mere anarchy and a reign of darkness. This is how the poet puts it like, by the time you reach the end of the poem. Shows how that sphinx-like entity, the guardian of the temples and the beast of power, is reborn. Now I'll tell you one interesting thing about W.B. Yeats. He believed that the borders of our minds are constantly evolving. That helps in the formation of memories. He believed that this great memory is the memory of nature herself. He went on to conclude that this great mind, along with the memories that you have inside this mind, they together can be evoked by symbols. Yeats also went on to distinguish these symbols into solar and lunar. And you see this trend even in this poem, The Second Coming. Let me help you figure it out here. If you look at this line, somewhere in sands of the desert, a very solar symbol. Pitiless as the sun, again a very solar symbol. Real shadows, lunar symbol. Darkness drops again lunar in nature. 20 centuries of stony sleep, again lunar in nature. Vexed to nightmare, again lunar in nature. Right, so you see this trend? You understand what Yeats wanted to talk about? How this mind, along with memories put inside it, can be evoked by the use of symbols. So the second coming, of course, refers to the Christian prophecy in the Bible's book of Revelation that Jesus will return to reign over earth in the end times to save the entire humanity. But Yeats had his own mystical view of history and future end of the world, marked by his image of the gyres. He says, turning and turning in the widening gyres. Gyres are cone-shaped spirals that intersect with each other. These gyres represent different elemental forces in the historical cycles, or the different strains in the development of an individual human psyche. Now, what is the meaning of this? According to Yeats's philosophy on historical evolution, which he goes on to explain in his book called A Vision, he says that history is a wheel always turning. So it's like a wheel and it is always running, constantly moving. And every revolution of that wheel is a historical cycle. And every cycle should take about 2000 years and should end in chaos, which makes way for a new cycle. Like in Hinduism, we have Satyuga or Kali Yuga. With the birth of the new period, the whole process should begin again. And here you must know that Yeats was highly inspired by Hinduism, the philosophy of Hinduism. He also goes on to highlight the technology, the progress of technology, which is beyond the control of mankind's ability. The problem was evident to Yeats, imagine, 80 or 90 years ago, and the problem has worsened since then. Yeats shows his concern that technology has advanced to the point where mankind can do a great deal of harm with relative ease. The world had never seen destruction of the likes of World War I, and then of course World War II happened. And most people were shocked at the extensive loss of human life during the war. In the time that Yeats speaks of, the rulers of the world were caught up in imperialism and expanding circles of power and money to the point where they would do almost anything to accomplish their goals. This is why I say, what is enough? We have so many buildings, we have so much of technology, we have this, we have that. But is anything enough for human beings? And if it is not, where is it leading us to? A bigger question for humanity, right? Alright, coming to the second stanza, he says, surely some revelation is at hand. Now here, this revelation refers to the birth of Jesus Christ. And he again says, surely the second coming is at hand. So you see the use of the word surely here again and again, the repetitive use of the word surely. By this, we understand, we come to know that the poet is sure that somebody is going to come and save the entire humanity. But in what form? He has no idea about that. Like God did come on this earth in every yuga. He came in the form of Lord Ram, Allah, Jesus Christ, Lord Krishna. He did come. He did save the humanity. But this time, poet is unsure of his form. What kind of creature will he be like? He says, the second coming, hardly are those words out. So he knows, he's sure that somebody is going to come and save the entire humanity. But the moment he thinks about that, something important flashes in his mind. And what is that? He says, what a vast image of Spiritus Mundi. Spiritus Mundi refers to the collective consciousness of the entire mankind. And he goes on to say, troubles my sight somewhere in sands of the desert. This second coming, this revelation, this somebody is going to come and save the entire humanity is troubling his sight. So if you remember the other forms of God, if you look at the images of Lord Ram or Jesus Christ, or if you understand Allah, they're very peaceful images, full of love and beautiful teachings. But what will happen this time? And he reveals that feeling through these lines, that it troubles my sight. Somebody like God, a very peaceful image, let's understand that, is troubling his sight. So there is something wrong about that. After all, we are all living in this age of Kali Yuga. Somewhere in the sands of desert. So where? Somewhere in the sands of the desert. A shape with lion body and the head of a man. There are a lot of images in this stanza. So if you understand these images, you understand the essence of the entire poem. A shape with lion body and the head of a man. A gaze blank and pitiless as the sun. So this time, God will have no empathy. God will have no sympathy for the entire humanity. God is considered to be the most merciful creature, right? God is the most merciful parent. If you do something wrong, you go say sorry to God, and God is all out there showering his blessings, forgiving you all the time. But this time, what does the poet say? He's pitiless as the sun. He has no pity. He has no empathy. He has no sympathy. Is moving its slow thighs while all about it. So look at its move. It's moving its slow thighs. Slowly and slowly is coming to us while we do all the wrong things in the world. But don't think God will not come. Don't think God will not destroy. He will come. He will destroy this age, the people of this bad world, that is Kali Yuga. Real shadows of the indignant desert birds. So you see the image of nature. Again, nature is something that we connotate with peace and beauty, with God, with empathy, with all the beautiful feelings and emotions. But this time, the natural images also, or the nature is also indignant, angry. This is why angry or indignant desert birds. So even the animals are ruthless. The darkness drops again. So it is all dark again, considering the kind of people that we are. But now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. Now, rocking cradle again refers to the birth of Jesus Christ, refers to the birth of that somebody, that great figure who will have his predominance all over the world, who will come to save the entire humanity. But the bigger question is, how is he going to save us if his image is so rough? This is what he says. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last. So, according to the poet, that rocking cradle, that somebody in that rocking cradle, the God is a rough beast. Its hour come round at last. Is going to come at last. Slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. A very important thing, he puts a question mark in the end. Bethlehem again refers to the birth of Jesus Christ. So here we come to know one thing, that this poet is pretty sure that somebody is going to come and save the entire humanity. So the image, despite the fact that he's used words like rough and indignant desert birds and its slow ties, words like pitiless, gaze blank, all these angry images. Despite the fact the poet has used all these images, he's pretty sure somebody is going to save the entire humanity. But how is he going to save? That is a bigger question. The only way of saving this cruel humanity is by killing, is by destroying the entire earth. That is the only mercy that God can shower upon us. There is no other mercy for people like us, because if you look at these lines, he says, the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Now reading the last two lines, he says, and what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. He puts a question mark there, a very important thing to notice. And by the image of Bethlehem in the last line, we understand that it's going to be the birth of Jesus Christ that will save the entire humanity. And what rough beast, again, by the image of rough beast, we also understand that God this time will not be soft as he used to be. This time he will take the image of a rough beast. But we must not forget that the poet also says in the first two lines of the second stanza, surely some revelation is at hand, surely the second coming is at hand. He's pretty sure that God is going to come, God is going to save the entire humanity, but the way he's going to save the humanity will be very different this time. The only mercy this time God will have upon us is the mercy of killing us. There is no other way for the people of this bad world. And this is why he's going to take the form of a rough beast, a rough creature. You also see the first stanza, the last two lines, the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. The best people are all silent, they're all suppressed, they're all subdued, they're all oppressed. But the worst people are full of passionate intensity. Here we must question the nature of passion. What kind of passion is it? The worst people hold all the structures of power. They hold all the predominance on this earth. So the only thing that God is left with is his image of rough beast. The only mercy that God will have upon us is the mercy of killing us, because the best lack all conviction. So you see, in the end, the poet has grown in knowledge but not in power. He can do nothing. So there is a sense of ambiguity in the poem. The learned can reach the knowledge of the things to come, but only the powerful can act over them. Thank you. I will leave you here. We'll meet soon. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope to meet you soon. Take care.